and North Carolina and Georgia and everywhere else that we're putting this together. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate I know many of you have driven from long distances, some of you short distances, but you know, it really is important to come together and know that you're not crazy. Or at least you're in good company. But to be honest with you, the more I see that's going on around us, I think it's the reverse. So, but we really have a great lineup. We're really going to try to keep things running. I was watching that clock that was behind me there, and it was like 10 till 9, but yet it was 9. So sorry, we started just a minute late. A couple of things I want to tell you about first, just about what we're doing. There are snacks and drinks during the conference right over here. You just go through and come down. There's coffee and muffins, things like that. Also, at lunch, and if you did not go through the registration, we have a little name tag. That tag is to let people know what area you're from, and just able to kind of coordinate and get to know different people. But it's also, you get your little door prize tag, and then you get a lunch tag. If you have not gotten a lunch tag, please do, because we're having Chick-fil-A sandwiches or pizza. And there's a guy that's a good friend that's actually supplying the Chick-fil-A, and he's waiting for the number. So just in case you haven't actually said, hey, I'm getting lunch, it's right here. It's only $5 for each one. So we're trying to keep this conference as reasonable as possible, just because the biggest thing here is to bring people together. And I wanted to make it as cheap as we could, and that's what this is all about. So thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. So we're going to have our first speaker, and many of you have seen him. If you have not, you need to go to his channel. Of course, I have links in mine. But David, Southern Prepper 1, he is a vet out of Iraq and has back home a lot of experience with prepping. And if you haven't watched his scenario videos, they are over the top. And so we live just right here together. And so upstate of South Carolina, we've got it taken care of. So anyway, I will give him a big hand. Thanks.
Wow, Such got me. You know what he said? He said, hey, could you come over and talk to a few friends of mine? I'm like, no problem, Such. Yeah, he must have a lot of friends out there, so thanks for coming. I'm going to get right into it because we're definitely on a time crunch to make sure we get everything out. Why are you guys here? You're probably here because you're concerned about what's going on, and that's a good thing. You're probably concerned that you see things in the news every day. We are definitely not on the right track as a country. We still are the best country in the world, don't get me wrong. So it is a little bit of doom and gloom, but we're better than anywhere else. If you had to pick anywhere where you would like to go, you would definitely probably still pick the good United States of America. But we can make this country definitely better, and hopefully we will. But right now, you probably have to get a life raft. You can see what's going on, and that's what it's about. Making a life raft for yourself, for your family, for your friends. Because if you're in your life raft and you can take care of yourself, it's a lot easier to reach down and help somebody else. If you don't have the ability to take care of yourself, you're not going to help anybody. So it's about building your life raft. Everyone is different. We have people in here that can probably afford to go buy a year's supply of Mountain House, and we have people that can't. So there's ways to do it. Don't want you to get overwhelmed and say, wow, I need a year's supply of food. No, you don't. What you need is 3 additional days of food in your house, and then work on a week, and then work on a month. Very, very slow steps. If you look at the big picture, you might get overwhelmed and say, man, I can't do that. Just stop and say, hey, I can do it, but it's going to be one step at a time. So don't get overwhelmed. We're going to talk about 2 things. First of all, I call it stockpiling, logistics, getting supplies, getting food put together. The other side of the coin, we won't have time to talk about is, but it's sustainability, growing your own food. It's very important, because if you're a prepper, you need to stock food for a short-term emergency and a long-term emergency. But you also have to have the ability to resupply by gardening, by growing your own food, chickens, eggs, and the list goes on and on. If you look at the Great Depression in the 1930s, who did better? The people that lived in the city or the people that lived in the country? the country. It was hands down. So we need to use that mentality and say, hey, we need to be able to produce our own food. You might be in the city and say, I can't do anything. You can. I lived in Buffalo, New York when I grew up, so you can. You might put out 2 tomato plants instead of 10, but if you learn how to grow 2, when the time comes, you can grow 10 or 12 or 15. So do something. If it's a container garden, think about it and do something. Why do I stock food? Well, I'm going to tell you 3 things. First of all, there was a story told me years ago about a guy in the Great Depression. He worked at a sawmill, and he was doing the best he could, but he wasn't making it. But one day he was working, and he said he got so hungry, he was going to pass out. And if he passed out, he'd probably lose his job because there's 20 other guys that replace him in a second. So he said, I'm going to sneak into the break room before break, and I'm going to steal some food. So right before break, he snuck in there, and he said they had a shelf, and everybody had their sacks on top of that shelf. So he, real quick, was lifting them up, and he grabbed the heaviest one. He grabbed the heaviest one because he said, you know what? I could probably take a little bit of food out of that guy's thing, and he's not going to mind, or maybe he won't even notice. So he grabs a bag and runs outside behind the building, opens the sack up, and pulls out a hammer, and he pulls out a black walnut. That guy that he was stealing from wasn't much better off than him. So that story has always stuck because that man was just like you and me, a good moral man that probably right now wouldn't think about stealing food from your neighbor. But under his circumstances, he was willing to steal from his neighbor, probably a guy he's worked with his whole life. Somebody he knew, probably went to church, kids knew. So if the times get tough, we will all stoop to that level of stealing food. That way, we don't want to go there. So if you can set up a stockpile, you won't have to go there, Lord willing. Another story, in Iraq. We would take our trash across from our compound and burn it. The first few days we'd do that, we'd throw the trash in. All of a sudden, people would be out there to get our trash. So we'd give it to them, they'd burn our trash. Before they burned it, they'd go through it. Soldiers, MREs, we wouldn't eat everything. We were picky. So they would go through it. A few days later, there was more people. Then it came to a point where people were actually pitching tents across from us to be first in line for the trash. We always took the trash out at different times because you don't want to do the same thing in the military because you could get attacked that way. One day I wanted to go out and see what's going on, so I rode out there in the Humvee, and people actually reached up and grabbed the trash out of the back. And that's sort of scary. You don't like anybody taking stuff out of your truck. What I witnessed was the sacks would come out, and they were plastic bags, and they would be torn open instantly because 5 or 6 people would be grabbing bags. You know what happens. They were at the point where they were hungry enough to eat our trash and fight for it. Literally, we had to fire the 50 cal over their heads because they were fighting with sticks. And that broke it up definitely when a 50 cal goes off over your head. I looked down and I saw little kids going through the trash. And it's like, those kids are the same size as my kids at the house in the States. So that story probably said, hey, I don't want to have my kids ever have to go through the trash to get food. So that's one reason I stock food. You're going to have to figure out the reason you guys are going to stock food. I don't know what it is. It's a personal decision, and only you can decide that in your head. If you watch my channel, I talk about 2 things. There's this thing called RAW, without rule of law. That means the crap has hit the fan. Things are not good in this country. Will that happen in the United States? I hope not. The chances of it, what is it, less than 1% probably, but there is a possibility for that. But I couldn't base my whole channel or my whole prepping on one little scenario with a very small percentage of happening. So I invented this one, RAW, without regular, ordinary life. And what that means is you lost your job, you got laid off, the wife got her hours cut at work, the transmission blew up and the washing machine broke all at the same time. Your brother-in-law and his family had to move in with you because he lost his job. That's RAW, without regular, ordinary life. So my stockpile of food and my prepping will do both scenarios. The terrible RAW situation or when our life is turned upside down. If I ask how many guys have had their life turned upside down in the last 3 years, it'd be a lot of guys raising their hands and ladies. Because life is like that, especially in this economy. Our food supply is definitely fragile. You all know that. It relies on a few things. It relies on oil, which is every day going up in price. And one day the spigot could be turned off very quickly, which would then drive food up, everything up, commodities up. We also run with computers. Computers control everything. When food is harvested, it's controlled by a computer. It gets on a truck, it's gone to the plant, they bottle it or can it, and it goes on to the supermarket. So there's a lot of things that have to play. Food comes from thousands of miles away. The funny thing is, if the weatherman comes up and he says there's ice or snow in the forecast, automatically every drop of milk and bread in the store disappears. It's just, I don't know how it works, but it works that way. If the newscast guy came on and said some terrible news, the milk and bread would be gone, along with the canned foods, the tuna fish, everything else in the store would disappear. We all know that. So being prepared, hopefully you won't be that guy at Walmart pushing and shoving for that last can of corn. You'll be home safely with your family, rationally thinking, okay, what do I need to do next? So our food supply is very fragile. We all know that. I don't want to talk too much about the tragedy in Japan because it's terrible. I don't want to take advantage of that situation, but we know what happened. Those people are probably still suffering. They've lost everything they own, and hopefully help can get there to them quicker. But that situation could happen in the United States. There's no guarantee that we can't have a major earthquake in the United States. So having a plan is good. Having a stockpile is good. Yes, your whole stockpile might get destroyed, but that's where networking comes in. If you have friends or relatives that are like-minded, you can agree, hey, if something happens, come to my house. If my house is destroyed, I'm coming to your house. That's simple networking like it used to be. And that's an important part of this thing. If you meet a guy within 20 miles of your house, exchange numbers. Okay, this is the perfect opportunity to make contacts. Hopefully you guys are here and you already know you need a food plan. You need to stock something. So I'm assuming most of you are on board and you're willing to, hey, I need to stock some food. Here's some mistakes in food prepping. People store food. Variety. Make sure you have a variety. Don't say, oh, I got a great deal on pinto beans, so I bought 50 cases of pinto beans. After about 3 weeks of eating pinto beans in a situation where you will have open revolt in your family, your wife and your kids. It'll be over for you. So, variety. The next thing that a lot of people make a mistake is vitamins. Right now, hopefully we're getting fresh fruits and vegetables at the store. If we have to dig into our stockpile of food for any length of time, common sense, we're not going to have enough vitamins. So make sure you stock a multivitamin. Very important. Your body will be under tons and tons of stress, whatever the situation is, and your body will need more vitamins. Another thing is balance. Let's say we've decided we're going to have a stockpile of food, a pantry. Balance it out. 1 month, let's say, well, I just bought all wheat. Next month, I bought all oats. The third month, oh no, something bad happened. You're not going to have a good balance. You're going to have to eat the two things you bought. So each month, buy a little bit of wheat, a little bit of oats, a little bit of macaroni, whatever your family normally eats, buy it in a balance every month. If you come across a great deal, yes, pick it up, but make sure you balance it out. Containers. I've made this mistake. So let's say you get a good deal on something and you buy it. You take it home, but you don't have the 5-gallon bucket, you don't have the Mylar. So you say, I'll just put it in the basement, I'll get to it in a day. A day turns into a week turns into a month. It's just, that's how life is. So if you're gonna start your stockpile, make sure you have everything to store it. Mylar, oxygen absorbers, buckets. Don't make that mistake because things will go bad. A mouse in the basement will get into your wheat and you'll be like, oh, I just wasted a bunch of money. Probably the biggest thing people make is they buy food and they don't use it. You need to use your food. The reason is, using your food, you're going to be able to rotate your food. You'll also realize, hey, I don't like that thing that much, so I won't buy any more of it.